Hi, hello brother, hello sister. Do you think you know who you are? Do you think you know what you can do? I'm telling you, you don't know a thing about yourself as long as you think you're limited. Why am I telling you? Why am I so fierce at this moment? I'm telling you, I did think I knew who I am. All the time, I would be and gentle and peaceful and humble being, and it's perfect to be like this. You know what I mean? It is perfect to be
Can you hear
all
me,
this.
Tom?
And I tell you,
Yeah, I can hear you. Just let me get a
still
couple more
there.
things set up.
But there's the
Okay.
other part of me, of you, of anybody, of us. Whatever you are practicing all the time, all the years of your life, what you think you're good at, what you should improve, and what you should be perfect in.
What's up, my brother? I see you shaved again. You're becoming
Yeah, it was important.
like,
So
yeah.
whenever my body is ready to let go of something, shaving is kind of
Uh-huh.
what I do.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Can you hear that sound when it comes in?
Yeah, I can
Did
hear
you
you
just hear
fine.
that? No, that notification. Did you hear that when it came in, the sound?
Oh no, I don't hear any
Okay, good.
notification.
We got Jason Estes.
Your
Got
internet's
tomorrow's
really
the big D
shaky
day. I
right
think it's.
now.
Yeah, I know it is. Can you hear me all right?
Uh-huh, I can hear you. But every once in a while you
Yeah.
freeze and then you just like do all these things like this and then you come back. It's fun.
So we're gonna hand it over to you real quick until I can. All right. So we've got the 16th of February coming in tomorrow. I think the energy's already hit.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of people talking about feeling in prison, entrapped, things popping up. It looks like some heavy duty clearing. I'll let you go ahead and handle it and see if I can work out this signal issue. All right.
Yeah, okay, cool. So yeah, as you were saying, the sacred fire is coming at 5 a.m., which is 12 hours from now. Well, a little under 12 hours. It's closer to 11 hours and 30 minutes. And that process of how do we work with the sacred fire? I am going to talk about the food game later, but I feel like it's more important that I kind of show people a technique to work with the sacred fire to help them prepare. So I actually got a visual aid. Is that okay if I teach that?
On you.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I mean, anyone can do this. It's really easy. All you do is you grab like a spray bottle like this, just fill it with regular water, and then you just put it between your hands like so. It's better if you can come to heart center with it. And then you just allow the sacred fire to enter into the bottle, and you can visualize it if you want. It's a beautiful blue flame that kind of creates like a rainbow glow, but at the same time has like this celestial silver part coming off of it. Like the sparks are almost like popping as the celestial silver. It's really a beautiful thing. So what you do is you just put it in the bottle though, just like this. And as you're doing that, you'll kind of notice that if you have sight right now, you can see how the bottle is becoming brighter and the energy around it is being affected and influenced. All it is you're just filling the molecules with it. So one meditation you can do is you can close your eyes, you can see that energy coming out of your hands into the bottle, and you can see the molecules of the water shifting into that beautiful sacred fire. And then as you do that, you'll start to create this amazing water that works at clearing your house. So then this bottle, once you're done, you just go and you spray around your house, a few circles, maybe 3. It's pretty good. And what will happen is you'll feel like you're in a new house. So just to kind of give you a demo of what that looks like is look at the energy. And then when I spray, you can see how the difference in the energy and the clarity, like it even actually caused a ripple to go through the screen and like in the background. And this is something anyone can do. It will just really help. You can also spray your body so that if you have any excess energy going around, that sacred fire just washes it right off. And that's the power of the sacred fire. It is a transmuting flame. So the purpose of it is to take that which doesn't serve you and transmute it, much like the violet flame, except I would say it's like the violet flame on steroids, because you've got the violet flame, which is really beneficial and was super helpful for the 3D and the 4D. But sacred fire works on 5D all the way up to the 13th dimension and even beyond that. So it's pretty much an all-purpose flame. And as of tomorrow, or really, about 12 hours from now, we're all going to have access to it. So you can use it now if you want, and you can prepare your space so that when the influx does happen, your space is ready for it. That's the most important thing I would say that you needed to know. And are you still with me there, Todd?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear?
Yeah, I can hear you, but you keep freezing.
Yeah. Just keep going. Keep going.
Okay, that works.
It's a platform for you. Just go ahead and good.
Yeah. All right. Well, so that's the first thing that you need to know is just that. Like, that's very easy to do. Anyone can do it. So just take the time to do it if you feel called to. The second thing, and the most important thing that I wanted to talk today about, was the food game. This is the number one reason that people are stuck in the fourth dimension and aren't able to make it to the fifth dimension. And it's really important that you understand that your body is an intelligence. So when you go into these intermittent fastings and you do all these other things, if you do it without your body being on board with it, you're actually sabotaging your process. So right before I got on here, someone was talking on my wall and they were saying, they were trying to fast, but they felt like they needed to eat, and they went ahead and gave their body what it needed. And it felt like they kind of felt bad about that, or like they weren't doing what they needed to do. But the thing is, that's exactly what you need to do. Learning to fast is a communication between the two bodies. The emotional body is like healing and coming through all this stuff because you're speeding up your metabolism. But at the same time, you as the inner child inside of this experience are also processing things. And then you, the spiritual being, are working to bring closer into who you are. And that challenge that comes up with wanting to fast or needing a specific diet and all these other things is because it's not time for us to come into someone else's diet. It's not time for us to come into someone else's lifestyle. You see, for the longest time in the third dimension to the fourth dimension, we really needed diets. We needed people to tell us what we could and couldn't eat, things like that, because it wasn't safe to eat certain things back then. But as we progress, it's really about this exploration of what works for us and what doesn't work for us. And fasting is one of those things. Fasting is good for every person eventually, but it's not good for every person right now. It's a process of you communicating with your body and saying, okay, body, I know you want to fast. I know I want to fast. Are we ready to do this? And what would it look like? Would it be just a few hours of conscious fasting, or would it be an entire day? Because if you fast for 1 hour consciously, you're going to learn a ton about yourself. You don't even have to do anything other than just not eat for an hour and consciously choose not to eat for an hour. A lot of people think you have to fast for like 10 days to get the effects, but no, you really just need to acknowledge with your body and you that you are not going to eat for that time. So what is the food game? How does it work? The food game is simply what we have built over time and all the belief structures around food. Like broccoli is good for you and pizza is bad for you and all these things that aren't actually true. They're just beliefs that were necessary before now, that as we come into now, we are able to make decisions around those things. And it's important that we make that decision, not anyone else. So while other people have opinions around what's good for you and what's not good for you, you get to have the final say. You know exactly what is good for you and what isn't good for you. And it's that discovery of what is good for you and what isn't good for you that breaks the food game. So as long as we're willing to have that exploration and we're willing to have that dialogue with our body, we can step out of the food game. And I can tell you right now, I've been out of the food game for years, and it's really relaxing. It's really peaceful. You can eat what you want. I love pizza, so I pretty much just eat pizza all the time. I don't gain any weight. I don't have any problems. I never malnutritioned, any of that stuff. It's just what I love, and I enjoy it. And I actually consider eating pizza a form of expression and expansion, and just like really a form of celebration. So eating can be great. There are a lot of people out there that do the thing called breatharianism, where they don't eat at all and they don't drink and they just live off the air. And that's beautiful too. For me personally, I don't like the idea of never eating again because I really love taste. Food has some of the greatest experience. I just love food. It isn't that I need food, it's that I love food. And that relationship of loving food versus needing food is where you come into that freedom. And that's how you break the food game as well. Instead of thinking you need to have a balanced diet, you explore whether you need to have a balanced diet. And you might find out at that level you do need to have a balanced diet. But at least you now know that you need that balanced diet, and you can play around with that at that point. You're coming in a lot better now, Todd. So
yeah. So what you're saying is that it's not so much what you're ingesting, it's what your belief system is and your knowing is as you ingest what you choose to ingest.
absolutely.
And really essentially the thoughts you're ingesting with what you eat.
Exactly.
Basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're programming yourself, right?
Say again?
I said you're basically programming yourself.
Exactly. And that's the key right there. When someone gives you a diet to follow, you're following someone else's program and therefore deviating from who you are. But if you agree to explore someone else's diet as yourself, everything changes. We have to learn, if we're going to evolve, if we're truly going to break the game, that is the food game, which is pretty much the reason why most people aren't in the fifth dimension, we've got to be willing to explore. And sometimes that's going to mean being a little sick at your stomach. That's okay. That's your body processing. That's your body learning. I was actually talking to my massage therapist around this kind of stuff, and he said that the body only needs to eat red meat one time a month for it to continue to keep those enzymes. So it's not about whether we eat it weekly or daily or whatever to keep the enzymes up. It's about whether we communicate with our body and say, hey, you know, these enzymes are still important to me. Another really important thing is there's a lot of people that say they're vegans or vegetarians or all things like this. You're playing the food game. The moment that you acknowledge that you are something other than yourself, you're playing the food game. And that's okay. You can totally play the food game. Just be aware that you're playing it. Like I personally right now, meat doesn't work well with my body. So I'm currently not eating meat. But if tomorrow my body said, I want you to order a pepperoni pizza, I'd be like, all right, I love pepperoni. This will be great. There's this belief that we can't alter it, that we have gone too far one way and we cannot escape that way that we're going, because then we'll lose out on what we've worked towards. But the thing is, all those things that we did got us to where we are so that we could actually have a choice again. It's not that we have to be a vegetarian or we have to be a vegan or we have to do these things. It's that, is this what my body enjoys me doing? I've talked to a ton of people who are vegetarians who resent the fact that they're vegetarians. They wish they could eat meat, but their diet says they can't eat meat. And they're at this point where they're like, if I give up this, then I'm going to go through this really uncomfortable situation about what I believe not being true. And that uncomfortable situation of what you believe not being true is you breaking out of the food game. You acknowledging and saying, oh, well, I don't have to be this if I don't want to be this. I have freedom to choose in every moment what I eat and why I eat. And that's the food game. If I can say, I want to eat pizza today because I want to eat pizza, and not one part of me thinks that pizza is bad for me, pizza is actually going to be the greatest thing I've ever eaten. But if a part of me says, pizza's going to cause me weight, pizza's got too many carbs, pizza's got this, pizza got that, and I go ahead and I eat that pizza, I'm eating those belief structures, which is going to cause me to gain weight. And all weight is unprocessed energy and emotion. That's all it is. So when I gain weight, what is happening is my beliefs are now coming out and manifest in the physical for me to look at and go, oh, this is a subconscious pattern that I'm storing here. And I can love that and I can accept that and I can finally let it go. And then all of a sudden, eating pizza is less bad for me, until eventually all those beliefs have worked through me and I no longer have them related to anything. It's that judgment that certain things in the food kingdom are bad for us that causes the biggest problem.
Yeah.
It's a personal decision. And that's the most important thing I can tell you today is pay attention to what you believe and why you believe it and who taught you to believe it. Because we're all raised to believe something.
What's the difference between the collective conditioning that we've all been a part of versus that more specific conditioning? If you get into a circle such as, let's just say, light workers that talk about being vegan or vegetarian, what I love about what you're saying is the energy of it, not attaching to, like you said, who told you that, not attaching to the label of it, which can actually apply to so many different aspects of our experience. Now, in relation to the food game, is there a specific reason you brought it up today in association with getting through what's happening now, or what we're on the brink of experiencing?
Absolutely. So as we come through this final level of the purge and we get prepared for the physical purge, which is like the beginning of the real purge, the pre-purge is coming to an end. We're coming into the real level of the purge, which is the physical level. The food game is going to be one of the hardest things that gets pushed on people. I've gotten tons of requests and tons of things on my wall that say very specifically, I feel like I'm ravenous today. I just can't stop eating. All these things are happening. And behind that, you see this judgment of them being like, oh, I'm eating too much food. Well, the body has 3 phases. It has homeostasis, it has the build phase, and it has the ability to come into this in-between phase of the two. And the in-between phase is what I call the learning phase. So you've got building, you've got learning, and you've got balance or homeostasis. When you're in a build phase, you're going to get ravenous. You're going to eat all kinds of crazy things you've never eaten before. Sometimes you just eat really strange food. Like pregnant women, they're in a build phase because they're building a life inside of them. And so they eat really strange foods. They have weird cravings, all those things. There's no difference between that and spiritually giving birth to a new version of you. You need certain things to build certain things. Now, the reason that I'm saying this today, of all days, and why I wanted to do this emergency, so to speak, message today to everyone was because we're in a build phase. We're preparing for a speed up phase, which is us testing what we are. So we're building up the resources necessary to prepare for that. Now, there's 2 ways to get resources. The first way to get resources is really simple. Just eat lots of food. Yes, you're going to get resources, but you're going to get very low amounts of resources for the amount that you're putting into your body. And that's okay. That works. The second way to get resources is through energy. The best way, in my opinion, is energetic. If I can bless that food that I'm eating, I now need less of it because I'm able to encode what I need into that food to eat it so that my body is able then to process that on top of the food. The food is just the container that holds in reality, while the blessing is all of the codes and frequencies that my body is seeking. And by doing this, we need less food. It's really simple. When I was, one of my fun things that I like to do with new students is I take them to a restaurant and I bless something and I show it to them. And they're like, why is this so much heavier than it was before? Or when I ate that, why did I now am full? Like I can't eat anymore. And it was just a single grain of rice. And it's because if you fill it up completely, that container, all of a sudden it's more than you need. Because that container is just as infinite as you are. So depending on what you believe and what you don't believe, you're able to influence that container to be so full that the human body doesn't need anything else. And then it becomes about eating for taste. And I love pizza, so I eat pizza. Because every food is the same energetically for me at this point. I like pizza. It's a yummy, delicious, wonderful meal.
Yes, it is.
Absolutely. So this food game
and
mastering this food game requires something that very few people know how to do. And that is resourcing their food into pure energetic coding. And I know that sounds really complicated. And I know that's like, oh, that's a little over my head kind of thing. But it's really not that complicated. Everything you've ever eaten in your entire life, your body learned pieces of. It didn't actually keep those pieces it learned because it said, well, if you're going to continue to feed me 3 meals a day, what's the point in me learning anything about this? I'll just keep eating 3 meals a day. But as you evolve, and I've talked to a ton of people who have done this, as they begin to become more spiritual, they eat less, except for when they're in build phases, in which case they eat a ton of food and they're not sure why. But for the most part, they eat less, and they eat less, and they eat less, and they eat less until eventually what normally happens is a 1 meal a day kind of diet where they're only eating 1 meal a day. But the difference between them and the average person out there is they came to that diet naturally. It was their choice to go there. Their body and them in that journey brought them to that point. There's all these people out there right now that are trying the 1 meal a day diet because someone told them it was good for them. And they're realizing that it's not good for them, but they're fighting it. They're struggling through it, and they're making their body sicker by doing it. instead of acknowledging and saying, I'm not at the 1 meal a day thing, and I don't know if I want to be. Because it's a process of a journey to get there. So that being said.
And so, yeah. No, I was going to say, and yeah, so with that being said, this is a great way to help us keep balanced as we go into these intense energies coming in, or revealing energies, or however you want to describe it.
Yeah, the place we're at is interesting. Is we're not going to be able to eat enough food to get enough resources to take care of our bodies moving forward. Like, there's got to be a new component added to that equation, because you aren't going to be like, when we get up into like the 50 data point things in March and May, like when we're like at the end of that and we really begin pushing hard, there is not enough physical resources that you can cram in your body without getting sick to give you what you're going to need to process that. It's just not going to happen. That being said, it's time to begin to learn how to create your own resources. And it's as simple as one thing. All you got to do before you eat, put your hand on your heart. You can put your hand on your head if you want. You can put your other hand on your heart, doesn't matter. And you just take yourself and fill yourself up with light from the top of your head all the way down to the tips of your fingers and the tips of your toes, your full body, fill it up with light. If you're still hungry afterwards, then go eat. But you've done something. You've created a pause and said, my divinity is able to strengthen and heal me and bring all these things that I need. So I'm going to pause first, and now I can do what I want. And every time you do that, you create a pause between the need for something as a misunderstanding and the actual need, until eventually the need and misunderstanding is gone and all you have is the actual need. Now you and your body are able to communicate very clearly because you can actually feel the truth. You've developed a discernment between you and your body. But in order to get there, you have to be willing to stop eating for a second, or at least create that pause in between. The other thing is, when you do eat, you need to bless that food, because if you don't bless that food, you're just eating whatever's in that food, whoever cooked that food, whatever animal was thinking when it ate that food, whatever plant was thinking when it grabbed the light from the sun to build whatever it is. It doesn't matter. You're getting only that. You're not getting anything about who you are and what you've put into that food and aligning it with yourself. So that's like the keys to breaking out of the food game.
So we're not vegans. We're not meat eaters. We're alone with who we are, we are, right? What fits for us.
First step is acknowledging.
Can you go?
That's it, man. Super simple.
And can you go over that again in regard to we're eating food? It sounds like, with what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, we're eating food as a means of energy, basically. Yep. We've moved into another phase. We're requiring less physical matter and more energy, though. And it is incumbent upon ourselves, it's in our best interest to take charge of that, take responsibility for that in an active way, which is to encode our food and any other source that we take in, such as light, sunlight, would that be accurate?
That is correct, yeah. So originally, humanity was in source, and therefore they didn't need anything. Everything was perfect. It was all flowing. Then humanity separated from source, and all of a sudden they became what I call vampires, because they began to consume and take from instead of continue to be within their source. But that was an important part of the journey so that they could figure out how to be themselves. And the only way to really be yourself is to first learn what that is. So there's all these trials and tests that come in to keep you from being yourself. And then if you overcome them, you become yourself a little bit more. And it continues to happen over and over and over again until eventually there are less trials and tribulations because you're yourself enough that you don't need them anymore. Well, the same thing with food. At the very beginning, when we're first born on this planet, we don't know what's good for us and what's not good for us. In fact, our bodies aren't really designed to handle solid food at that point, which is why babies don't eat solid food. We're more an energetic being for the first 7 years than we are usually by the end of our life. By the end of our life, we've usually shut down almost all our energetic like processes. It's just part of that thing. What we're being asked to do, and I mean literally on the 18th when we start the physical phase, is learn how to make your own resources. And it's as simple as paying attention to stuff. You know, you can grab something like this, hold it, and be like, okay, what energies are in this? How can I make these energies? And if you just sit there and hold this for minutes a day, you're going to learn a ton of things. But you have to consciously do it. If I just pop pills on autopilot, I'm not learning what those pills are doing to my body, how it's affecting me. Supplements are pills to me. All kinds of things that you take that are like that are little tiny doses of energy that are encoded to do something. And all it does is it tells your brain to release a certain chemical to affect certain things in your body. Well, you still have the brain. You have the chemical that's supposed to be released in the brain. Why do you need the pill? You need the pill because you're taught you need the pill. The truth is, you don't really need anything, but you have to be at a place where you can know that you don't need anything. And again, this is really important for anyone watching. This doesn't mean go and fast for the rest of your life. This doesn't mean do anything extreme. It simply means create a pause between what you believe and what's true and find the middle ground. Because right now, what you believe as true may not necessarily be true. And then have that willingness to let go of what you believe and explore it. Be willing to challenge your belief structures to come free into something greater. Because everything that was built in the third dimension will not last in the fifth dimension. It's that simple. And a lot of people have third dimensional belief structures they don't even know they have. There's this thing called sub games that people aren't aware of. So the moment I say I'm a vegan, every sub game related to being a vegan is then applied into me. And there are a lot of sub games because anything that someone believes is related to being a vegan is a sub game. It's the same thing with yoga. Well, if I do yoga, I've got to be a vegan because yogis are vegans. And therefore, if I'm going to be a yogi, I've got to be a vegan. No, I can just go practice yoga if I want to practice yoga. And if I want to be a vegan, I can do that. But they're separate. They're not the same. And this next phase of the purge is literally going to be pushing on those beliefs. Anything related to physicality in your diet and all the things that you think that has to be true, be ready for them to change. And what's beautiful is if they don't change, that's even greater. That means you got it right. Maybe you have a part of a particle somewhere that's wrong, and then that little tiny thing is altered. No big deal. But you've got to find your personal right and your personal wrong and discover that through exploration. Because otherwise, you're going to be a conglomeration of other people's beliefs, and you won't have your own. And there's nothing wrong with beliefs as long as you're willing to let them go whenever you're proven that it isn't right for you anymore. Ultimately, my best thing to tell you right now for anyone watching is work with what works until it doesn't. And then when it doesn't, you just let it go. You don't need to shame, blame, do anything else. Just simply acknowledge this isn't working for me anymore. I'm done with it. And then step away from it. It's that simple.
Yeah. What I love about this too is you talk about the false prophet. The false prophet energy is collapsing. And as you're talking about this and our own belief system, it's like the false prophet within ourselves, you know?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, without and within. So that makes a lot of sense. Programming it and deprogramming.
Exactly. We have all been programmed by others. No matter who you are, no matter how enlightened you are, you've been programmed at some point by others. It doesn't matter whether you're still programmed or not. All that matters is that you know what it feels like to be programmed, and you go through the process of deprogramming and finding yourself. And the food game is a great place to start because it's our belief that we need something outside of ourselves. And it's one of the core ones that if we don't eat, we're going to die. There's people that have proven that that's not true. And there are people that prove that that is true. So now you have to figure out what's true for you. Because if you believe if you don't eat, you will die, you can starve to death. It is possible. Yeah. But if 100% of you believes that you are not going to die if you do not eat, all of a sudden you cannot eat and not die. It's very magical what we are capable of, but we have to have the willingness to let go of what we believe to explore what we actually are capable of. And again, for anyone watching, please do this without extremes. There is no need to create any form of extreme in your life ever again. It is as easy as going back into that centered state and making decisions. I can't stress enough how important it is when breaking the food game to not go into extremes. There are so many people right now that are like, oh, I'm just going to fast for the rest of my life. It's going to be great. That could actually end very badly. And then you might not ever want to fast again. And that's not great because it's not doing it because of trauma. So remember, slow, steady wins the race. All you got to do is just add a little bit of change every day. And a year from now, you'll have 365 things that you change.
Boom.
Be willing to acknowledge that everything takes time. The food game that you have built up, every person that's listening, has taken your entire life to build up. Don't think that you're going to deconstruct the entire game in a day. Be grateful with every wall that you take down and every moment that you gain more truth and more clarity. And just enjoy the journey, because that journey is the infinite game. That is the ability for you to be free enough to explore yourself in relation with the world. And it all starts with a slow, steady increase of changing things. So don't go into extremes.
I see two things out there. Really, I think it's the same thing. It's coming in two different ways. One is so-and-so said that you need to do this, so I need to do that. And then the other side, or the other face of that coin, is I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. I have a point of contention with that.
Yep.
I have a difference there. And we hold on to this absolute, this belief that we need that or we're not that. And that seems to be a prevalent energy now. That's trying to force us to look at ourselves and get off of that thing and detach from it, you know?
Exactly. And that's the challenge that people have, is if I don't believe something, I have to show other people I don't believe that thing by convincing them not to believe that thing. When the truth is, I don't believe that I need to eat meat. Cool. I don't need to tell anyone that. I just don't need to eat meat. It's that simple. Somebody asks me, they say, why don't you eat meat? Then I can be like, because meat currently isn't agreeing with my body. And then I leave it at that. We don't need to go into a soapbox reason for why we are what we are. We don't need to preach to people. We need to be examples of that preaching within ourselves and preach to our internal critic, you know, our inner problems. If we want to believe something, then talk to yourself about that belief. Figure out what parts of you don't believe, because
you don't need to say anything.
There are enough pieces inside of you that will listen to you for the rest of time talk about all the things you believe. You don't really need anyone out there to tell them. Our opportunity is to come to what we are and be an example of it so strongly that people come and ask us. But when they ask us, our job isn't to convert them. Our job is simply to acknowledge what's true for us and let them make a decision. That's what a way shower is. They live by example. When someone asks for something, they show them another option, another way, and then they leave it alone. They don't force them to go that way. They don't care if they go that way. They simply acknowledge, this is the way that I live, and it may or may not assist you. But now you know about it.
Yeah.
So you can make it your own. You can see whether or not it fits in the way that you live in the world. I see a lot of what you're talking about.
Sometimes
where people are pushing one thing or another thing, or they're yelling about one thing or complaining about a thing instead of just being.
That's not true. This is not true, or I need to do this, or they said do that. Here's a question that carries an energy that I see a lot of. We overcomplicate things.
Yep.
And we don't rely on ourselves. And nothing against our dear friend Amy Couture. This is just a great example. How do we bless food to charge it with our energy? And I think that's what this is all getting to, and what Jason is taking that sole responsibility. And what would you do? You know, it's just like if I do a ritual, I never go in a book and look at a ritual. I just say, what am I going to do? get under the sun, drown, or whatever comes to mind. It's our own energetic signature. It's our own inscription. We're embedding in, and that's exactly saying about this food that we don't confront or we don't address. We're taking everything in its state without giving our own self the chance to alchemize it and transform it, and therefore transform our internal body.
Exactly. And what I would say to that question is play with it. Try blessing something one way and then taste it. See if it tastes sweeter or bitterer. If it tastes bitter, then there's things that aren't necessarily right in that coating. And if it tastes sweeter, usually that's a good sign. And you can even do that with water. It's probably the best example because it's easiest. But the thing is, if you're blessing something for you, you can't really get it wrong. Like, you're putting light into something and making it better. Yeah. So even if it's not perfect the first time, you learned how to do something and you're going to improve upon that. The key to where we're headed is not relying on other people's teachings. My friends joke around with me a lot because they're like, Jason, you're trying to put yourself out of your own job. Every time that you tell people to go within and find their own answers, you're ending the need to have that person as a client. And I'm like, I hope someday to never teach again. Like, I really do, because that means that there's no one on this planet that needs information from me anymore. And on that day, it will be a great day. But until then, I'm going to continue to do what I do, work on myself constantly. And then when people show up, I'm going to assist them to discover something new or to see a new point of view. But the journey to discover who you are is a solo journey. It is a exploration of what you believe and what you don't believe, and why you believe what you believe and what you don't believe. And the only way to get there is to do the work. You have to go and take that time necessary to explore those things. Like, there is no other way. I can sit here all day and I can tell you beautiful words and I can weave them in the greatest ways. But in the end of the day, all that's left is add a little bit of positive change to your life every day for the rest of your life, and you will have had a great life every single day. And if you're struggling and you're financially not doing well and all this other stuff, then look at why you're not financially doing well. Ask yourself, am I worthy of doing well? And if you aren't worthy of doing well, be okay with that and then work on being worthy. You'll be surprised at how fast your life can change. I've seen people change in weeks. I've seen people change in months. I've seen people who took 5 years to eventually apply it and change. But it's okay as long as you continuously do something every day that improves the quality of your life and those around you. You will have a great life. Right now is one of the weirdest, strangest times for humanity. And almost everyone I know is struggling with stuff. And that's not on you. That struggle you're going through, those weird things that are happening, we're in the weirdest time right now, and everyone is being tested and challenged on things they've already passed, on things they have yet to pass. It's just that process. But after May, if you find yourself still struggling, then it's really important to ask yourself, why am I not worthy of what I want? And does what I want actually help me? Or is it something that I want that's actually going to hurt me? Because a lot of the things that we're programmed to believe that we want, we actually don't want. We just saw a commercial and all of a sudden we were like, ooh, I want to go eat at this restaurant today. But we don't know why we want to eat at that restaurant. And if we were to challenge that want to eat at that restaurant, we would find that we actually don't want to eat at that restaurant. Because everywhere we look, we're being bombarded by beliefs that aren't our own. And it's important that we shut all that off and really find out what we want and how to live it. So we're in this great time to find ourselves. And up until the May 18th point, when the purge ends, everything that you believe, you might not believe tomorrow. And that's okay. Be willing to let it go.
Yeah. Yeah. Can't hang on to anything.
I call it the lily pad approach when I teach it. If a frog sits on a lily pad too long, it sinks, and it has to get in the water, go back and hop back to get back to that same point. Same thing with fixed ideas. If we believe something is our foundation and we just sit on it and we don't move, it begins to either rot or become stagnant. both of which are chaotic energies that will eventually submerge us into the ocean of emotion. The only way is to continuously move. So if you want to play on this lily pad, you play on this lily pad for a minute, you jump to this lily pad, jump to this lily pad, jump to this lily pad, and then, hey, you might come back here. And that's okay to have beliefs. Beliefs are great. They help you to get from one place to the other. But beliefs are like a bridge. You don't carry that bridge with you, otherwise you aren't going to be moving anywhere. Have belief, enjoy it, work with what works in the moment until it doesn't, then move on. And instead of moving on by killing a teacher or a belief structure or anything and anyone else, just go, this doesn't work for me anymore. Thank you for the things that did help me get to where I am. And then you just move on. Because we don't need to vilify or demonize anyone or anything around us to feel good about ourselves. All we need to do is acknowledge that it doesn't work anymore for ourselves and even to ourselves. And then just walk forward freely. We don't need to tangle ourselves with the drama anymore. The number one thing I see in the spiritual movement today is so much drama and so much victim patterns and so much like just fear, utter fear. And the truth is, all those things, they're not who we are. They're not what we need. All we need is ourselves. And then to go enjoy the game that is.
Yeah, and to remember too, you know, I get caught up in these, and I understand the distinction of artificial intelligence in this realm through our experience, but the bottom line is there's nothing artificially created. Everything's the same energy. Everything comes from this. There is no differentiation. Oneness is oneness. It's our perception, like you said, it's our belief system. No different. For 2 years, when I woke up, eating McDonald's almost every day. And I guarantee you, I alchemized 99.9% of those burgers. Yeah. That's all I could afford, but I was appreciative of it. And it was a
McDonald's diet that actually a lot of people use, and it works to get up into the upper levels of fourth dimension. It's someone that came up with it, and it's like this coding thing that you do, and you drink these things, but because their base value is so low, when you bless it, you can bless it to a higher level. So they use that as a template. And there's nothing wrong with that. But eventually, it doesn't work anymore. And instead of saying, okay, this technique is horrible, blah, 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 you look at it and go, well, for like the last 2 years, this technique helped me tremendously. So thank you for that technique. And now I'm going to go discover how I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I have a student that actually spent over a year, I think, gridding Dr. Pepper and created this amazing alchemical mix of Dr. Pepper that like you just do a few things with and you can drink it and it's like so great for the body. But they didn't want to give up Dr. Pepper, so they found another way.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. Yeah. We have that ability inside of us. We can make anything good for us. It's just whether or not we want to or not.
Yeah. So in essence, anything outside of us is it's the same energy, period. And in essence, it's an external reflection of the universe. We can communicate with all of it and cooperatively transform it into a common ground or whatever you want to call it for the higher good.
Yeah.
So if I love Dr. Pepper or whatever it is, if I love it, I can work in conjunction with it to create the highest and best good for all. Yeah.
Yep. That's how it goes. Our choice is how we introduce ourselves to something. So if I'm blessing this water, all I have to do is not need to control it, because to bless something and control doesn't really help you. I mean, you're still going to get something out of it because you're taking the time and attention, but most likely you're just going to get a lesson out of it, not as much nutrition as you could get. Introducing it is creating that communication, saying, hey, you know, you're going to be in my body and we're going to become one. So I really want to take this time to get to know you. I want to encode you into something that's great for me, but I want to do this naturally. I don't want to think, oh, this is this code and this code and this code and this code. I'm just allowing it to be what it really was meant to be and freeing it of anything that it wasn't meant to be, so that when I drink it and connect to it, all that it wasn't meant to be isn't in me. And it's actually what's good for me that's in me. And that makes it better for me. And there's billions of ways to do that. And every one of them is completely perfect and fine. I have my own way, and you're going to have your own way, and Jane's going to have her own way. and Sarah's going to have her own way, and Bob's going to have his own way. It doesn't matter. Everyone's way is perfect until they say otherwise. That's the first and most important lesson I ever teach. Everyone is perfect until they say otherwise. If I judge you, I am no longer perfect, and you are no longer perfect, and now I have linked myself to your imperfections, and they're going to be getting pulled into me, and now we're going to create drama. But if I acknowledge you as perfect and acknowledge that I'm the only one not perfect in this entire world, and I work on that part in me, then all of a sudden you might come to me and say, hey, you know, I've been noticing you look a little different today. What's different? And now you've created an opening for me to explain what's going on with me. And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, that's kind of what's going on with me too. And I feel like you might actually have learned a few things. Do you mind sharing? And then now you're open to receive. So you're actually going to take the information, you're going to learn, you're going to grow and evolve with it. But as long as I try to force my agenda and my belief into you, we're going to have drama. We're going to have a war. And neither of us wants a war because it's a waste of resources.
You bet. You better believe it. But I think we are seeing it more because there's not a whole lot left. I mean, we're getting down to the nitty gritty here. We're getting down to judgment of others, which is basically a mirror of self-judgment. You know, we're projecting it on someone else. You're not knowing or not being aware it's alive within ourselves, right?
The lowest level of the fourth dimension is victim. It's the lowest level of the fourth dimension because you're acknowledging something has more power than you when you victimize yourself by saying someone has more power. So if I say it's your fault, well, that means I'm not strong enough to take the fault. So now it's your fault, which is now acknowledging that I'm not in control. And that's actually a highly conscious choice. Whereas a destructive force or a saboteur is a third dimensional force. I'm not going to tell you that you have power. I'm just going to do everything I can to undermine your power. You see, that is a third dimensional version of the fourth dimensional understanding of victim. You act behind the scenes and you don't even know you're doing it usually to sabotage or dissuade or destroy an individual instead of acknowledging that that person is to blame for something and then saying, oh, wait, that's not true. I'm to blame for it. Let me claim that power back from you that I gave you to make you into something that could do something to me. And now all of a sudden I'm me again and you're you again. And I can be grateful for you holding that space. And now all of a sudden I'm moving up into the upper fourth dimension because I'm taking responsibility. And that's the key to moving into the upper fourth dimension is responsibility. Without that, we cannot make it to the fifth dimension. You have to have that platform of responsibility. And it looks like total ownership. It looks like the ability to say everything that is wrong in this world is my fault.
Yeah.
And any part of me that doesn't believe that, that's what I work on. Because as long as everything in this world is my fault, then I'm empowered to change everything in this world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the beauty of that vulnerability of expression, saying, hey, everything's my fault. Totally fine. Yeah. I can acknowledge that. And then
everything's in my hands. Yeah.
Exactly.
Everything's in our hands. That's what I was saying on an earlier show. You saw a lot of it last year. They'd say there's 3 Earths, there's 4 Earths, there's 5 Earths, there's 2 Earths. Some of us are going here, some of us are going there. And I'm not taking anything away from anybody's experience. But the fact is, it is what it is. It is what we are. Yep. And taking the responsibility, it's ours for the making. So, yeah, this is good. And the food, it's both an reality and an analogy, but it works, and because we can use that in all aspects.
Absolutely,
there's nothing we can't do. We don't need anyone to tell us what to do. Yep. Actually, if we can pick up a bottle of pills and we can communicate with that, we can certainly find ourselves in a moment that we want to expand and grow and say, what do I do with my diet, or what do I do with this ritual, or what do I do with this relationship, or whatever it may be. We can connect and we can get the answers we need. And like you said, we're perfect until we say we're not.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the takeaway from today is simply we are perfect until we say we're not. And if we're willing to acknowledge that we're not perfect, which all of us are dealing with something at some level, then we're able to finally work on that. And if we're willing to acknowledge that everyone else is perfect until they say otherwise, it gives us the time and space and room for us to work on ourselves. Because if we're trying to change everyone else out there in the world, we don't have enough time to work on ourselves. But if we work on ourselves
That's true.
first, then all of a sudden what happens is the people that do find us are the right people. It's one of the reasons why I don't do marketing or anything like that. I just do word of mouth. I believe every person in the world that is meant to find me can. And all it's up to me to do is become a better beacon.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. All right, man. I appreciate it. We all appreciate it. Thank you for sharing space with us and honoring us with your presence. And we'll see you soon, I think, in another 10 days or so.
Yeah, I think
You got anything planned?
yeah, I have you on the 28th, the very end.
Okay,
So
13 days. And then just going out the door, that date you said something. I want to make sure everybody hears it. We get to, was it May 18th? Was that the day?
I think it was May 18th. What are you asking though?
It starts on the 18th of February and runs through.
Oh, yeah, May 18th. Mm-hmm. That's
May
the
18th.
end of the purge.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if you get to that point, you said earlier in the show, if you get to that point and you're still experiencing certain things, do you remember what you were saying?
Yeah. So if you get to May 18th and you're still struggling with a lot of things, it's really about worth at that point, not just challenges. Like right now, yes, take responsibility. If something comes up and it's in your face, work on that, obviously. But don't take it as like, oh, this is inside of me. I'm this horrible person, all these things, because that's not going to help you. On the 18th of May, everything after that is going to be core stuff that is being reflected back to you. The purge will be over, so it won't be pushing on you. It will be stuff that comes up in your daily life. And it will be a very different expression because the weight of this purge is heavy. It's like very, very strong weight. Very, very strong weight. Whereas outside of the purge, it's not that. So anyone who's struggling, just do your best with what's in front of you. Keep doing your best with what's in front of you. Keep doing your best with what's in front of you. And all of a sudden, May 18th will be here. And then at that point, you're going to learn a lot more about who you actually are. Because while you're in the challenges and while you're in that storm, it's really hard to accept who you are and to move forward, and you lose reference of who you are. So just be aware that this challenge that we're about to enter isn't who you are. It's things that are showing you parts of you to let go of. Don't let it identify as your reality, though, because this is not what life is. This is the very final push of getting us ready and prepared and worthy of what life is. Yeah. So to those who struggle right now, understand this is not your life. This is not what it looks like. If you've lost hope, understand that this is temporary, because after May 18th, it's going to be a very different world. And you're also going to notice themes to each of the purges, each level, and those purges are designed to help you. So when you notice that you're dealing with a lot of physical things, don't think that that's your life. That's just things that are coming up for you to work on in your life. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it's almost the reverse. Right now, what we're going through up to May 18th is actually all contributing to a greater self-worthiness.
Absolutely.
It just doesn't feel so good. I thought I was going to come unglued yesterday. But after May 18th, then it becomes a core issue, maybe, to put it one way, a core issue of your own worthiness that you still got to go for. You got to go find.
Yeah. I feel like the majority of people on this planet after the 18th of May are going to be doing way better than they can imagine, because each obstacle that you overcome, you gain more confidence and more strength and more awareness. And if you guys look at my wall, you'll see the picture of the kid with a boot on his head.
Oh, yeah.
At the end of May 18th, the majority of the planet is going to be the second photo where you can actually see that the kid is the one holding the boot on his head. And to have that perspective is really everything. Because if you know that you're creating the situation for you to learn something, you're not going to take it personal. You're going to be able to acknowledge it and work within the framework of it and grow and expand out of it. And it happens really fast. But if you take it personal, then you start spiraling out of control, and all of a sudden someone else is doing something to you, and now things are getting really dicey, because you either are going to go into blaming that, which is the fourth dimension, and you're going to fall to the very lowest level, or you're going to try to sabotage that. And that's the third dimension. And you'll find that sabotaging that's going to end up like exploding and back on yourself very strongly. because the third
Yeah.
dimension won't be acceptable after the 18th. So
Yeah. Instant manifestation works both ways, so be careful.
absolutely. Yes, it does. And the other thing is,
All right,
we're getting all these wonderful Ascended Master gifts through this process, right? So we're not alone in this. We have tons of support. We're continuing to get even more support. There are amazing teachers that are going to be stepping out after the 21st, sharing more wisdom. It's just going to be a very beautiful place. All the technology that the future is going to be building is going to be even greater and greater. It's going to be a world of our imaginations and then some. So this is the final step to getting there. And for everyone that's afraid of the ascension, if you are watching this and you are like in your life, even if it's like miserable and you feel hopeless and all that, you pretty much made it. Because at this point, the sacred gift comes in like a few hours, and that sacred gift is going to illuminate all those things and give you a very easy choice to let them go. So, you know, that's going to be very helpful. But then the next gift that we get is the light of hope, right? So we're going to have this whole new restoration of hope within ourselves, which illuminates us, it sparks us, it ignites us into our passion and our purpose. So just stay alive, enjoy the ride, continue to do better in your life, work with what works until it doesn't, and you'll find that you're in a whole new world in a year from now. So just stay alive and stay within your faith. And that's what I'll leave you with.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, brother. We'll see you in 13 days. You take care. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you in a little bit, about 30 minutes for the next show.
Have a blessed and beautiful one.
Always.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. You take care.